We are doing the top 6 college football national title contenders for 2024. The Arizona Wildcats. Arizona is legit going into 2024. Jedd Fisch has done a tremendous job in his short tenure with Arizona to where now coming off of an incredible season. I think next year they are absolutely a national championship contender. They check every box going to next season. They have one of the best offenses in the country. But unlike the stereotype Pac-12, which I guess now is to be retired now that the Pac-12 is no more, but right, classic Pac-12 thought is great offense, no defense. Not the Wildcats. Top 20 offense this year, top 30 defense. So they were balanced, did a really good job at scoring points and also preventing points from being scored. That, I think, will continue into 2024. You're going to have Noah Fafita, their tremendous quarterback who stepped in and played really well down the stretch. He's back next year and was super inexperienced coming to this year and still was the 10th most efficient quarterback in college football. He was tremendous. One of his best receivers in McMillan is back next year, 1,400-yard receiver, now coming back for Arizona. So you have one of the best receivers returning next year now for Arizona. Like, this is an offense that averaged almost 35 points per game. I know they weren't talked about a lot and were never on the spotlight in terms of Pac-12 championship contention or college football playoff contention. But next year, keep an eye out for Arizona. They're going to be a preseason top 10 team. With the playoff expanding to 12 teams, I expect them to make it. I mean, going to the Big 12 next year, it's, to me, them and Utah. 2 teams to beat in that conference. Arizona is legit. They, to me, right now are number 6 in terms of national title contenders for 2024. Let's go to the SEC and welcome for the first time the Ole Miss Rebels. I love this offense returning. Oh my goodness gracious. It is going to be one of the best offenses in the country in 2024. Jackson Dart coming on back. Some of the best receivers in terms of Trey Harris and Jordan Watkins coming back for the Rebs. Last year they combined for 107 catches, 1,700 yards, and 11 touchdowns. They are instant offense for the Rebs. And here's the difference for me, because I'll be honest, I wrestled with putting Ole Miss on this list. I love their offense, but a big reason why I've not been an Ole Miss believer in the past has been because they can't stop anyone. Because their defense has been garbage. And getting into shootouts every single game, especially against good teams that have good offenses and defenses, that's not the recipe for success. And that's been a big reason why Ole Miss has never won a big game. Next year to me is different. Obviously, Nick Saban departing Alabama is huge. But also because the portal king himself, Lane Kiffin, has now started legitimately beefing up this defense. They just landed the number 1 transfer portal player in defensive tackle Walter Nolan, who was the number 1 overall recruit in the 2022 class. He went to A&M. Now he's at Ole Miss. You got 4 other transfer portal players on the defensive side of the ball that, again, should help beef up what has been a leaky and, frankly, soft defense for a large part of Ole Miss's recent history, but especially since Lane's got there. So now you're going to have a more physical defense, especially on the defensive line. That now is how Ole Miss actually becomes true contenders. I'm buying into their defense. They, to me, number 5 in terms of national title contenders in 2024. The Texas Longhorns. They are number 4 to me. Now, they have some massive losses this offseason from a team that went to the college football playoff. A.D. Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, tremendous 1-2 punch at receiver, both gone. Byron Murphy, Devondre Sweat, tremendous 1-2 punch on the defensive line, both gone. Now all 4 going to the NFL. With that said, though, they still have enough talent on offense. And I think Steve Sarkisian is still growing and getting better as a head coach, where he will make up for some of those talent losses, especially on the offensive side of the ball. There's been no official announcement, but I'm going to at least assume and believe Quinn Ewers is coming back again for 2024, which is huge. You had Jaden Blue really shined from the running back spot in the college football playoff semifinal game against Washington. So I think he'll be able to step in and run the ball really well. Sark has gone into the portal and at least has done a decent job on paper, at least, of trying to replace two big-time home run hitters in Mitchell and Worthy. Offensive line, which is key here, because while Ewers and the receivers get a lot of attention, the offensive line, I thought, was a big reason why Texas was actually a legitimate title contender for the first time in a long time. And that offensive line, at least a majority of it, will be back in 2024. So Sark has done a good job on the portal. Your quarterback is coming back. And this is also a guy that I think he has shown an ability to grow as a head coach, which is huge for the continued development of Texas in terms of getting better and winning those big games. Like, I think just last year to this year, 2022 to 2023, you saw massive growth from Sark. Where 2022, they lost that Alabama game at home in large part because they played not to lose. They were very conservative. Then the next year, we saw them go down to Tuscaloosa, play fearless, play aggressive. That's why they beat Alabama back in week number 2, and that's why outside of the Oklahoma game, they didn't lose again. They were aggressive. Sark has grown, and I think he'll use that Washington loss as a learning experience to get even better in 2024. Texas, number 4 on my list in terms of top 6 teams that can win the national title in 2024. The Ohio State Buckeyes. I think this offense is going to be better in 2024 than it was in 2023. Now, it's not because they got a huge quarterback upgrade. For me, I'm not as high on Will Howard as others are. I think for me, it's a lateral move at quarterback going from Kyle McCord to Will Howard. Talented. But I don't think, going to have the same success as C.J. Stroud or Justin Fields did in this Ryan Day offense in years past. But Howard is very solid and will run that offense competently. I love the Quinshon Judkins addition, the Ole Miss running back, who is, I would argue, the best running back in the SEC. And one of the best running backs in all of college football, just this week committed to Ohio State. That's a huge addition for this offense. And look, I know Ryan Day's gotten a lot of flack and a lot of heat, especially from Buckeye fans, for his offensive play calling and obviously his ability to beat Michigan. I believe, and I have a lot of faith in Ryan Day. I think he's going to be able to turn this offense around, and even though there are some different pieces, Howard in from McCord, no Marvin Harrison Jr., I trust him to get this offense back on track in 2024. And the good news for Ohio State is 2 things. Number 1, playoff is expanding. So beating Michigan is not a requisite to make the playoff like it was in a 14 playoff, even though they made it in 2022 despite losing to Michigan. But the other thing is, Michigan's done. Harbaugh's leaving. Sanctions are coming. Graduation's happening. Michigan is no longer going to be the elite team they were for the last 3 years. So it's going to be easier to beat them, and you will be the better team in 2024 compared to the Wolverines. And outside of Michigan, Day's not struggled in beating anyone else. He lost to Oregon 1 year, okay. He also took going into 2022, or I guess really the game before that, but he took, what I'm trying to say, is that he took Georgia, who was about to be the 2-time defending champs. He took them to within a field goal of beating them. And I think they would have beat TCU of winning the national title. 2022, Ohio State was a field goal away from winning the national championship. This guy's kryptonite day, that is Michigan. No one else he struggles with. He carved up with C.J. Stroud that elite Georgia defense in 2022. Day will be fine. Ohio State will be fine. Even though it's a lateral move at quarterback, bringing in Will Howard for McCord and you lose the best receiver in the country, I still got a lot of faith. Ohio State's going to be on that short list and going to be knocking on the door next year to win that national title. Now, this has a little bit of an asterisk. It's the Oregon Ducks. Oregon is number 2 on my list if Dan Lanning stays as head coach and does not try to replace Nick Saban at Alabama. Lanning has done a tremendous job at Oregon, and he's done what his mentor Kirby Smart has done at Georgia. Oregon's at the point where they are not rebuilding. They're reloading. You are losing the best quarterback you've had in a while in Bo Nix. You are losing the best receiver you've had in Troy Franklin. For most teams, you lose your best quarterback and your best receiver, you're in trouble. Not Oregon. This team is still stacked in 2024. You go into the portal, you get Dylan Gabriel. Tremendous addition where he is instant offense coming in. He's going to do really well in that offense. You still have really talented receivers, even despite Troy Franklin leaving. So you're still going to have a lot of weapons to throw the ball to. Your offensive line is still going to be one of the best in the country. And that defense, despite some key losses, are going to be a lot better or continue to stay at the level that they've been at. And just like Ryan Day, right, Dan Lanning's kryptonite is Washington. Oregon has lost 3 games to the Huskies the past 2 years. They've been unable to get over that UW hump. Well, just like next year, I think Day's going to have it easier in terms of beating Michigan because they're going to lose a lot to graduation. Jim Harbaugh is going to leave, and we could see some sanctions, recruiting sanctions as well that could hurt the program. Washington's not losing their head coach, and they're not going to have to worry about sanctions. But they're losing a lot. Like, you're going to lose Penix, probably lose the 3-headed receiver monster. That defense was senior-laden for the Huskies. 2024, at least on paper right now, feels like a little bit of a rebuild versus a reload for Washington, even in getting Mississippi State quarterback Will Rogers to come to town. So it should be easier for the first time in the 4 matchups that they'll play Washington for Oregon to beat the Huskies. I love Oregon. This team is super talented, and they are going to be a problem in 2024. That is for sure. So top 6 list in terms of teams to win the national title in 2024. Number 6, Arizona. Number 5, Ole Miss. Number 4, Texas. Number 3, Ohio State. Number 2, Oregon. The team I think that is most likely to win the national title next year is the Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia is number 1. The panic has subsided, thankfully, from what was hand-wringing over a mass exodus of players to the transfer portal a few weeks ago. Why did players leave? Well, because they got plenty of more great players coming in. Number 1 recruiting class, Kirby Smart just wrangled up himself. So another loaded, talented Georgia roster is going to be built. Carson Beck coming back is huge. That's a guy that I'll give him a lot of credit because early on the first 2 months, I was not sold on Carson Beck. Did not like what I saw, was not sold that he could take Georgia to the next level. And to his credit, he got better every week and played his best football in November. Now you lose to Alabama Nick Saban, who doesn't. Now you don't have to worry about that problem next year and beyond. Carson Beck coming back is huge. I love the Trevor, brother of Travis, ETN addition at running back that will help subsidize or help fill in some of the gaps there with running back losses as well. So this is a team that I think, again, is the closest to Alabama. I don't think they'll ever get to the level of dominance and success that Alabama had under Nick Saban, but they're right now the closest. Kirby Smart has built a tremendous culture that was on full display in the Orange Bowl where they had no reason to get up for the game, no reason to be excited after missing the playoff, and they, to put it nicely, beat the brakes off of Florida State. There was no letdown whatsoever. And that speaks to a tremendous culture Kirby has built and now sustained. And in a way, I think losing to Alabama is actually a good thing for this program. Kirby Smart talked about it after last year's national championship that now it's, it's going to be harder to keep his guys motivated. The complacency is going to seep in when you win back-to-back national championships. And I think in a way, losing to Alabama almost re-humbles and re-grounds that program, not Kirby per se, but the players to remind them, you're maybe not as good as you think you are. Get that rat poison out of there. And I think helps to refocus Georgia in 2024. They are going to be a machine. And they, to me, are my team to beat next year when it comes to winning the college football national title.